Okay, so in this video I'm showing you guys how to edit your image in Photoshop. We have it right here on the desktop. I'm just going to open it up in Photoshop. I'm going to just go ahead and hit that little unlock just in case. Sometimes it prevents you from doing things to their image. Next here I'm going to the perspective crop tool, not the regular crop tool, perspective crop. This way you're able to mark each little corner of the image that you're trying to crop. It, it's a lot more detailed than just the regular crop, and we do need this to be pretty exact, so this just helps me get that exact mark. And see how I'm just getting in there right in my little corners. So here on the side, there's a little bit of a mess up. Some of my black desk is showing, but I'll show you guys how to fix that later. It shouldn't matter too much. Next, I'm going up to Image, Adjustments, and Black and White. So this turns your image black and white, although it's already black and white. If you're using it depends on the lighting. See how my lighting was maybe a little yellow. This way, I'm just able to be 100% sure that my image will be a stark black and white when I'm adjusting it. So black and white is going to definitely look better. Next, I'll go up to Image again, Adjustments. This time we are working with the posterize. So 4 levels, we only want 2 levels since we're just trying to get black and white. Press OK. And again, you guys probably will not have to do this. A couple of these steps. I just had to do it because I took an image of my inked card with my phone. If you actually do use your scanner, then you should be 100% okay. So it should already be pretty stark black and white if you did scan it. But here, regardless if you scanned it or not, you're going to have these awkward little areas where you messed up with your ink. So go over to the brush tool there on the left hand side. Make sure up top it says that the brush is normal. Opacity is at 100%. There on the little squares at the bottom you can choose your color. Again, we're just working with black and white. So now I'm just filling in some of those areas that didn't take too well to the ink, or it might have just scanned wrong. This is ensuring that I'm going to have a pretty good looking pattern and it won't look too blotchy or, it just kind of helps it look a lot better. If you need to change the size of the tool, just right up there, you can see the dot up on the left-hand side that says 30. You can just adjust the size of your brush that way. I just like to use a couple of keyboard strokes that are a lot easier to manipulate whenever you're working on something kind of tight knit like this. So again, continuing to fill this in. Be careful whenever you're working around the edges of the image because this is what's going to allow your pattern to wrap correctly. So I just brought up my original image to double check the sides as I was working on them. Even if you do mess up, there's a few tricks to this that you can fix after they're printed out just using your Sharpie. I'll show you guys how to do that later on. Now I'm just going in with white. You don't want to use the erase tool since in Photoshop, if you use the erase tool, it's going to show up the gray and dark gray checkered background that's actually behind the image. So be sure that you're using the paintbrush tool again for this, just using white instead of black. I'm just fast forwarding a lot of this because I didn't realize it took so long on this step here. But once you're done with this and everything looks good, go ahead and go up to the top to image again, image size. That's really big, so let's go ahead and take this down to 4. Make sure that the little sign there off to the left is clicked, that little chain link mark. I felt more comfortable making the height at 5 rather than the width being exactly at 4. It's fine if it's just a little bit off. We can work with that later. So yeah, I definitely feel better just having my height at 5 since it seems a little bit less off. And then it gets super tiny. So I'm just zooming in here to make sure everything looks pretty good. I'm not sure if you guys can see this on your screen, but I wasn't happy with it because it was looking extremely pixelated. So I'm just going down over to image size again, looking at my pixel ratios here. I'm just going to do auto resolution, and again it's having me resize it, so just doing the 5 again for the width, or I mean the height, sorry, and it's less pixelated here, so I'm a lot happier with it. You can see around the edges it kind of has this odd little halo around it, so I'm just going to fill those in really quickly since I think something may have gotten altered a little bit in our process of resizing the image. So just be sure that you're double checking all of the edges, what's supposed to be black real quick, and colored in black, whatever areas are supposed to be white actually look like they're fine, but for some reason my black didn't want to go all the way to the edge, and I think that has to do with that 0.049 whatever hundredths of an inch that I was off. So now I'm just going to save it. I always save everything on my desktop just so I can see where it goes. Be sure you're saving this as a JPEG. This will allow you to print it pretty easily, or you can print right out of Photoshop, but I'm emailing it to myself so that way I can just print it for free at home. I'm just gonna title this 9 times to remind myself to print it 9 times, and I'm just saving it as maximum amount. There's my old image, and here's my new image now on my desktop, ready to go. So, a couple of differences there, but if anything went wrong, I can always fix it later on. Okay, so now that I have this printed out 9 times, I went ahead and printed out an extra just in case I mess up. So you're just going to use your X-Acto knife and a ruler, and you can see that the white edges are just completely gone. So we have to be really careful whenever we're cutting these out to make sure that they are not crooked. So I'm just sliding it up with the exact edge there of my paper, what I'm doing here is I'm lining up the butt end of the ruler here with the edge of my paper. That's going to give me a pretty straight cut, as well as I'm straightening it up, lining it up to the edge of that black line. So should be straight. Remember to cut towards yourself so that way you have complete control over the blade and you don't lose control and accidentally cut yourself or make a wrong cut. Okay, so here on my edges, I just need to trim it up a little bit. Be really careful whenever you're doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to double check to make sure that I cut this correctly, and I did. So I'm just going to line that up. Same thing here on the side. It's just a little bit off, but you can cut all of yours out and then decide whether or not you want to trim them up or just kind of paste them on top of each other. But for now, just wanted to show you guys how to do that. This is it looks a little better. I'll keep it. I'll keep it. But we'll see. We'll see. Anyways, go ahead and do this to the rest of yours. I really wouldn't recommend cutting them out like stacked on top of one another, just in case you do mess up. That way you've only messed up on one and not 2 or 3 of them. So just be sure that you're doing these one at a time and taking it slow. Okay, so once you're done cutting all of your pattern wrapping bits out, we're going back to this page where we started to the page that helped us make the pattern. So what we're going to do is we're just going to glue these right on top. They should fit within the 5x4 areas. What you can do as you're working or as you're pasting them down is try to see which ones are going to fit together the best. So you may have a few that maybe they're a little crooked, or maybe in some areas it's just not touching because maybe there's like a little white strip between them. But yeah, as you're working, just kind of try to fit them together to the best of your ability. So you can use glue to do that unless you have another method that you prefer. I think a glue stick came in the kit, so you can just go ahead and start pasting. Maybe I'll start with the middle, actually. So while the glue's still kind of wet, it has some wiggle room so you can kind of set it into place as you're working. But okay, I'm done now. We can go ahead and I'll fast forward this part. Okay, let's zoom in here real quick. Okay, so my pattern didn't wrap fully correctly. This little area, it's just across the board a little off. So what I can do to cheat just a little bit, I'm just going to take my Sharpie marker and I'm just going to fill that in like so. And maybe like there's a few white lines that also somehow managed to get away from me whenever I was trimming. So I'm just gonna fill those in too real quick. What's important is that you are at least seeing your mistakes and you are seeing how to correct them for the future. So I've colored in all my little areas I think that were terribly off. The sides wrapped pretty good, but it was just that one little area that threw me off. But yeah, so there's the completed pattern page for Portfolio 1.